Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting day of masterclasses hosted by the IAPC&M. I'm your host, Elena Nedeva, APC, and I'm so excited to be here with you. Today, 18th of November, was dedicated to a series of complimentary masterclasses on the topic, how coaches can tap into their inner leader. Earlier, we had the pleasure to deep dive into 3 masterclasses about Leading with Vitality by Catalina Flore, Human-Centered Leadership Coaching with Monica Johnson, and Leadership Through Change with Nikki Wild. Up next speaking is Gemma Went and her masterclass, Leading Powerfully with ADHD, a powerful reframe of ADHD as your strategic leadership advantage so you can stop overcorrecting and start leading with clarity, conviction, and calm. Practical regulation tools that increase focus, reduce overwhelm, and support executive function without masking or burning out. So Gemma will share with us a customizable system to work with your brain, not against it. Here's a little bit about Gemma. She's an online business and leadership mentor and founder of The Lighthouse, an online business training and consulting company. With over 2 decades advising 6 to 8 figure founders, Gemma's work fuses behavioral science, operational strategy, and AI-powered delivery to help businesses stop running on adrenaline and start compounding trust, profit, and peace. Gemma is leading voice in the trust economy, known for helping savvy experts exit founder dependency, stabilize client delivery, and scale to the moon without selling their soul. So without further ado, over to you, Gemma. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. All right. First of all, let's start a little bit on me, not too much because I want to move on to a topic that I'm very passionate about. So as you heard, I'm a mentor, strategist, AI pioneer, and I'm fueled by ADHD and curiosity. And you're going to see all of that play out today. At my core, I help founders become better leaders and scale a sustainable, sellable, profitable business. But as I have ADHD, I have worked with an awful lot of online business owners, founders, leaders with ADHD. So although I'm not an expert in this topic, I'm bringing you my lived experience of what I've seen and how I see this play out, because I have so many conversations about this every single day, and it can become something that really affects how you lead as a business owner. And actually, I've worked out a way of making it work for me, and I help my clients with that. And that's really what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So I was diagnosed late, as many of us have been, about 5 years ago. I was in my 40s, already a mother, already running a successful business. It's my second business. And from the outside, it looked like I was absolutely nailing it, because the thing is with that, what no one else tells you is when you get diagnosed, everything becomes clear. So everything until that point was brilliant. I'd had all of this success. I was what I thought was just simply going through perimenopause. So I had a lot of body changes and mind changes as part of that. And I guess it was that prompted me to get the diagnosis. And I had the diagnosis, which was brilliant, right? But it also brought about this stuff that I really wasn't expecting, because yes, I started to understand myself and my mind and how I show up, but also it brought some grieving for me. And any of you that are watching this, if you've been diagnosed later in life, you might resonate with this. I grieved for the child that was told she was too much and too sensitive and too messy and too chaotic, and all the ways that my ADHD as a child showed up. I grieved the teen that worked 10 times harder than everyone else because my brain was working differently. And I grieved the woman who I could have been if I'd known sooner that there wasn't something wrong with my brain. I was just wired differently. And I was wired brilliantly, but I was wired differently. And I was living in a world and a society that wasn't actually built for that. So my thing with learning that I had ADHD 6 years ago was really around understanding how I could build a way of leading and running a business and living a life that worked with me and my brain, and not by fixing what was wrong, because nothing was wrong. I was just wired differently. But it was really about unmasking and stopping all of these things that I was doing to cover up what I thought was wrong, and then actually embracing it and using it as a power to lead. So for this talk, it's not about overcoming ADHD, it's about leading powerfully with it. And that starts by seeing it not as a flaw, but a feature and a strength. So first of all, I want to take you through how I've seen ADHD showing up in leadership. Now, there might be plenty of other ways as well that you have witnessed, but this is certainly what I've witnessed in myself and in my clients. And I've worked with over 3,000 online business owners and leaders over the last 12 years. So I've kind of watched their patterns and understood what makes them tick and how they approach things. So first of all, let's cut through the stereotypes. ADHD in leadership isn't always visible. And it's the same with ADHD in life, right? It's not about bouncing off the walls or forgetting your car keys or not filling in your forms, like the guys that arranged all of this, bless their hearts, were very patient with me, found, because I wasn't filling in my forms as a speaker. All of those things happen too, but actually it's subtler than that. It's how it shows up in really invisible, subtle ways that helps you really understand it. So things like rapid fire thinking, having 10 tabs open in your brain constantly, constant ideation, innovation, coming up with new ideas, struggling with prioritization of that, because most of the time the new ideas are the shinier ones, the ones that are really giving you the dopamine hit, so you want to do those fast. That is basically my life. Everyone asks me that I work with, how do you come up with all the ideas? How do you manage it all? And that's what it's like for me constantly. And it's working out how to work with that and embrace the brilliance of it. Because there are very few people that have that ability to be able to think like that and come up with those ideas and innovate like that. Over promising and then spiraling. This happens a lot. It's something that I have to really consciously manage, like that dopamine rush of saying yes to something because you're really excited by it, and then that turning into anxiety when you actually have to implement or execute the thing, and then feel really overwhelmed by it because you need to deliver it. And that takes quite a lot of self-management to move through that. Avoidance masked as productivity. So you could spend 4 hours rebranding something that you should not be doing, or playing with a new toy to avoid a really important task that you need to be doing. I recognize that in myself from my very first days of working and being employed. Like, I have done that for as long as I can remember. And now that I know I have ADHD, I can recognize it. I can catch what I'm doing and then control what I shouldn't be doing, and step into what I should, and give myself the gift of dopamine by stepping back into the stuff that I want to do afterwards. And it takes some real conscious thought. Emotional reactivity. So what we tend to find is, and again, you might resonate with this, one piece of negative feedback can feel like an absolute personal collapse, and it's real. You know, we have rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, which means that if anyone says anything negative, or they say no to us, or someone decides not to be connected with us anymore, we can feel it 10 times worse than anyone else. And it's hard. And so again, managing that, because this can come up a lot when you're leading, when you have a team, when you have a whole bunch of people that you're working with, when you have peers, when you have clients, when you're in communities, and it can come up a lot and takes a lot of management. Time blindness. So we can either hyper focus for 9 hours straight, which feels like 30 minutes, or jump between 20 tasks with zero traction, just like bounce, 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 without knowing what the time is. Again, I have this a lot, and I have to very, very consciously make sure I am where I'm supposed to be. I also have a team that try their hardest to manage me in doing that, and they do very well. But sometimes I will slip through that net, and something will go amiss. And then inconsistent execution. So genius ideas, brilliant plans, and then follow through that basically depends on the wind or how you're feeling that day. So this is how it can show up, right? And managing these things can really help us to step into being a much better leader of ourselves. And I always believe that leadership starts with self-leadership. How we lead ourselves is how we lead others. And so for me, with these things, when we become aware of them, really working with ourselves to better manage them means that we're going to lead ourselves through it. We're going to feel so much calmer. Our nervous systems will be far more regulated. And that means that we're going to be leading others in a similar way. And they're going to be learning that from us as well. But the kicker from all of this is most of us with ADHD have spent years masking it and covering it up, overcompensating, trying to be what we think a real leader looks like from the outside. But we are real leaders. We're just wired differently. And when we embrace that and all of that difference and all of our wiring, everything changes. Because I truly believe people with ADHD make some of the strongest leaders that I have ever met. And I'm not just talking about me here. I'm talking about clients that I've worked with, peers that I've worked with, that are incredibly successful and have ADHD and are brilliant, brilliant leaders in so many different ways. And so I believe ADHD itself gives us the ability to be amazing leaders when we really learn how to harness that. So I wanted to talk about specifically the leadership superpowers of those of us with ADHD, because our brains are deeply built for vision, velocity, and innovation. I mean, it's no mistake, you know, when I was back in the day when I was employed many, many moons ago, I don't think I am anymore. I've been running businesses for too long. But back in the day when I was employed, I worked for a product innovation consultancy. And I don't think that was any coincidence that I ended up there. I was so fired up by the whole innovation process. I headed up their marketing, yet still got involved with facilitating ideation sessions. And we were designing like products for global brands that had mass appeal, and it just worked with my brain. And I think that was the first, and I didn't know I had ADHD then, but it was the first time I became aware of my kind of excitement around ideas and innovation and thinking differently. And we are really built for that. It gives us that edge when we know how to use it. I mean, I was speaking at an event, so I very much, I mean, this is a very good example of this. I have very much embraced AI, and I will be coming to the IAPC&M and doing some talks around AI because it's a passion of mine. And I've embraced AI as a tool to help clients scale their business. And because of my ADHD, that happened. You know, I jumped on board that and I dived deep and did research and played and created and came up with a whole new methodology earlier on this year that I've been using this year that's had the most ridiculous results for me and my clients, like huge effects and positives for them. And I know that this is driven by my ADHD and my natural inquisitiveness and the brain that thinks out the box and comes up with all of these crazy ideas. So when we really understand that, we can harness it and use it for good. So things like creative pattern recognition, I absolutely use this in my AI work. We connect the dots that others can't even see. We invent new frameworks. We create movements. And my company is called The Lighthouse, right? it is a movement in itself, and it's been running for 12 years now. I learned that I had ADHD, like I said, 6 years ago. I've been inventing frameworks and creating new methodologies before I even knew I had ADHD. And as soon as I understood it, I was like, well, that's why my brain just sees things. You know, a lot of my clients say to me, when I work with them across their whole sort of business strategy and create a scaling plan, they say to me, it's like you are a conductor in front of an orchestra, and the instruments in the orchestra are all the different core pillars and the parts of a business, and you just make them harmonize and work together. It's because I can see a whole business and every part of it. So when I'm auditing a business, when I'm creating a strategy for a business, my brain sees how it all works together. And I just thought that everyone sees businesses like that. It wasn't until I really harnessed my ADHD, when I found out about it, that I realized actually that's a skill of mine. And I need to use that as a unique positioning point, because not everybody sees a business like that. And that creative pattern recognition is phenomenal in business. Hyperfocus. Now, hyperfocus can be damaging as well, because we can just sit for hours and not eat, drink, go to the loo, anything. But when it's aligned, we can go deeper and faster and smarter than anyone else. So I can build out AI tools within 2 hours from idea to it's launched and you can play with it now. That really gives us the edge. When we find the thing where we're going to do this kind of work, that really gives us the edge. And a lot of my clients come to me for that work. Emotional empathy. So many ADHDers are sensitive leaders, like in highly sensitive. We feel energy around us, not just the people, but we can feel a room. I can walk into the room and I can tell what the energy is in there immediately. We can pick up on more team signals that others might miss. We can pick up on what prospects are feeling when we're having sales conversations, and we can change track if we need to. And this empathy that we have makes us feel safe, resonant, and trusted by those that are working with us, by prospects that we are talking to, by team members, by people we are collaborating with. So that empathy is such a power. And I think even more of a power in this day and age of AI, which, you know, ironically, I love as well. But what I have found with the rise of AI comes the craving for more human contact, because we are social beings. We can't just work with technology. And so as I've used more AI, I've wanted to be in contact with other humans again. And I've wanted to speak at events and go to events and do other things, because that's who we are, right? And so those of us that have that level of empathy are going to connect so much deeper in this age of AI, and again, makes us phenomenal leaders. Quick decision making. So we often lead from instinct, and when backed by by experience, we are razor sharp. You know, I can make a decision on a turn of a sixpence like that, and not worry about it. You know, all of my friends tell me I'm the person that they want around in chaos or when anything goes bad, because I can just make a decision and run with it. That quick decision making is so powerful when you're a leader. And then finally, visionary thinking. Like, we do not play small. We imagine 10, 20, 50 possibilities, and they all have potential plans attached to them already. We scale when others stall. We see opportunities when an industry might be declining. We see how to innovate out of recessions. You know, I've been in more than one recession and have innovated out of it. You know, the fact that I have innovated with AI in this current economic slump is my way through this. And I've actually innovated in another way as well. So I have two kind of ways that I'm focusing on in 2026 that are going to really lead me out of this current slump that we find ourselves in. Again, that comes from my ADHD. So really, the same traits that were punished in school, that we were told not to do, are prized in leadership when we learn to own them and just embrace them. Now, there is, it's not all amazing. There is some darker sides to this, and it is a disability, and it is hard, right? So this side of things means that you can have various other things running inside of you alongside the work that you're doing as a leader. So, for example, and these are some examples, there may be more, of course, because we're all wired very differently. There are many flavors of ADHD. Emotional exhaustion from trying to hold it all in your head. Like, I feel this. Like, sometimes my body just says to me, you've been doing way too much. You need to just stop, or it will make me stop and go to bed, because it just like, that's it, I've given up. So we need to be really aware of that, because we're carrying a lot. We're carrying like 10 times more, 20 times more than other people at any one time. Executive dysfunction that sabotages your progress and fuels self-blame. We have learned to self-blame from childhood when we were told we were wrong, and we started masking. We have learned that the way we are, the way we think, the way we do isn't right. It doesn't fit in. We want to fit in with everyone else. So this executive dysfunction that we get really stops us in our tracks, and then we start to blame ourselves. And that's really a dark pit that we don't want to fall into. It's really uncomfortable, and it's not healthy for us. So learning how to manage that and spot it and realize it's not you, it's just what's going on with you, is a really powerful way through. Imposter syndrome, because you're smart, but you feel like a mess. And again, I think this also links in with the masking that we've learned from being a child. But what everyone else sees as amazing ideas and you achieving so much, often we won't recognize that because we think everyone can do it. So even though someone might be saying, God, you're amazing, and all this work you're doing is amazing, we might still feel that imposter syndrome because we know what a mess things are and how chaotic other things are in our lives. And that can really hold us back. And again, it's about managing that. Overstimulation and burnout, especially in the scaling phases of business. I work with growth and scaling businesses, and I see that a lot. People with ADHD and others, but particularly with ADHD, try so hard to do so much and want to get it done in the shortest time possible, and it just overstimulates and burns you out, and your system just can't cope with it. And then an overdependence on adrenaline just to get anything done. So actually needing the dopamine hit to come out and actually do anything. And that becomes a pattern that we need to break and stop and just manage dopamine in different ways. Now, all of these things are real, but they're not our fault. They're just part of us and our makeup. They're really about our nervous systems and how our brains manage dopamine stimulation and time, and it really takes us being very conscious of that to be able to manage through it. And we won't always, I'm very kind to myself when things slip, or I've just not managed myself through something, and that kind of self-kindness and self-leadership really helps in these situations. That we need to stop self-flagellating and making ourselves wrong. This is who we are, this is how we're built, and so we manage ourselves through it in the best way possible. Because I don't believe this is about discipline, it's about design and how you design your life and your business to support your ADHD and the way that you do things. So it's not making yourself wrong, it's building an environment that supports you and the way that you need to be doing things. So I want to talk a little bit now about how to navigate ADHD and really lead with the power that you have and that it gives you. So the first thing, I do an awful lot of work around nervous system. The first thing is really about understanding how to regulate yourself and your nervous system and then lead, because you can't lead in chaos. If everything around you is chaotic, that's going to really affect how you're showing up and how you're leading yourself and how you're feeling as well. So your nervous system is your most valuable business asset. I manage my nervous system throughout the day. I have various practices that I do, really simple practices that I do at my desk to regulate my nervous system, to bring some calm to my body, because when I feel calm in my body, I know everything else is going to be okay. And part of that, I think, and this might be a new concept to some of you, part of that is actually knowing what that feels like in your body when you're dysregulated. Where do you feel it? Because it's different in all of us. And the way I recognize it, I can just feel my shoulders will go up and it feels like they're stuck there. And I can feel this anxiety in the top of my stomach. And when I start to feel these things and become aware of these things, I will just sit back and start regulating my nervous system. And I can regulate immediately and get myself back and grounded. So using nervous system tools to ground before making big decisions, before going into meetings where you're feeling a little bit dysregulated before you go in and you want to come from a really calm, anchored place. I did nervous system work before I came on and did this presentation. Like, I speak a lot. I do stage, I do online stuff like this. I will always work with my nervous system before I come on, so that I'm coming from a grounded place throughout. So learning that can really help you. Using dopamine anchors to get started without relying on panic. So often we will leave things to the last minute, won't we? Like me filling out my forms for IAPC&M for this talk, like doing the presentation for this talk, because we know that we're going to get a big dopamine hit and we're going to get it done because we hyper focus and it's really powerful, right? But actually, if we manage that better, then we can help ourselves with that. We don't need the panic. We can actually get the dopamine from doing a task. So actually sitting yourself down and doing the work and getting the dopamine from doing the work rather than the dopamine from doing it last minute. Also, building in white space, not just for rest, but to think clearly, like to give your mind some time to do the work that it does so well. I think so many of us with ADHD, I mean, I know so many people with ADHD who are geniuses, like they are utterly brilliant, as will you guys be as well. But nobody gives themselves enough space to actually honor that and honor that creativity and honor that brilliance that you have. We need that space just to allow it to percolate, because yes, we're going to come up with even more ideas, but actually there's going to be depth there and we're not going to be chasing it. And it allows the body and the mind to kind of stay in tune and move together. Externalize everything. This is something that I really do struggle with still, even though I'm surrounded by systems and an amazing team. Your brain is not a filing cabinet, but for some reason, we think that it is. We think that we can memorize everything. I can walk around with my calendar and my to-do list in my head and all of my projects and all of my things. Now, that's not healthy. That needs to not be in my head. It needs to be in ClickUp, in the projects, looked after by my team with a whole system around it. It also means that my team aren't on board. If it's in my head, they don't know anything about it. So that's something that's really important, to just make sure everything gets shared into the right system so that you're not the one that everyone's reliant on. It's a tough thing to do, particularly if you're a small business owner and you're used to managing everything. It's quite hard to teach yourself to do this. Like I said, I've had teams for years, and I don't think I've ever been without a team actually for the last 8 years. I still struggle with this and try to kind of do things and then get told off on a Tuesday when they realize I've marched ahead and done something without telling them. So externalize everything and surrounding yourself with systems is your friend. You probably know that one already. Hopefully you're already doing it. Number 3, delegate for cognitive load, not just time. Now, most people delegate to teams to save time. We actually need to delegate for brain space as well. So offloading decisions, not just the task. Because here's the thing, when we offload the tasks, they still come back to us to make the decisions, don't they? And that just gives us even more cognitive load. So what we need to do is delegate and give them the chance to manage. Again, not easy. But when we've done that, we've gifted the whole thing to someone else so that it's not ours to think about. And again, that just reduces that cognitive load and creates space for the things that you really want to be looking at. Of course, with the introduction of AI into business, it can really help with this. You know, I cannot be without my AI tools that help me with everything, and my team use them. We've got a whole system that we're using with AI that really helps with this. But I think this, if you're not doing this already, this is a really powerful thing to really help ease the burden for you and give your team the tools that they need to be doing to manage their tasks rather than constantly needing to come back to you. Creating safe structures. So a lot of ADHD people really don't like structure and systems because it feels like a cage, but it's not. It's scaffolding. It holds you. So things like daily check-in rituals, weekly planning with dopamine breaks, visual pipelines, not long lists. I don't know if you're anything like me, but when my team put together project plans, I can't look at a long list. I have to see a timeline. Otherwise, it makes no sense to me. A long list I just find really overwhelming and quite dull. It doesn't get me excited, but a visual will get me excited and then I'm on board with it. So it's about gaming it, like using the things that are going to work with your brain, and then building business systems that remove you as much as possible so that it's not dependent on you. It doesn't give you an emotional load. We're actually going through this at the moment. I've just hired someone to help me use AI to automate everything in our business, because I'm the way that I'm using AI isn't so much to automate. I'm using it with my clients and teaching them how to use AI to scale their delivery. Right. So if you're a service-based business, training AI in your methodologies and your IP, and using that to work alongside you to deliver at scale to clients, because then you have infinite scalability, because AI works 24/7, 365, never has a sick day, never has holidays, never needs time off for Christmas. It can work all the time. So that's my focus. However, we haven't looked at the AI automation in my company because I'm talking about AI so much. I need to be walking that talk. So we've just hired someone that's going to come in and automate and take a lot of this stuff off so that it can run without me. The other thing that I will say with this, part of the thing that I do with my clients, and it's part of my offer, is helping them to build a business that's sellable later on. Now, a sellable business needs to work without you. It needs to work without anyone. It needs to not be founder dependent. It needs to have its own systems. So that works with this as well, right? So we're trying to take you out and build systems around it so nothing is dependent on you, and can really help you to build out a business that's profitable, that scales, that gets all the results you want, and also excites you and gives you the dopamine that you really want, but isn't dependent on you. Because that way, and this is what I find as well with a lot of people with ADHD, we kind of go in fits and starts. Like there can be periods of time, we have seasons where like we are on it, all of the ideas, everything's amazing. But then if we haven't managed our emotional load, if we haven't managed our nervous system through that, there is an inevitable dip. And then we need to step back and take care of our bodies, because that's when we're in risk of burnout, because there's just too much load surrounding us and our bodies are really feeling it. And this is when we see a lot of business owners who have ADHD and other neurodiversities completely burn out and not be able to step back in again. And so creating systems, creating structures can really help you to manage that and then have a really lovely life around it. Because a lot of leaders and online business owners that I see with ADHD, some of their personal lives are non-existent because they're so excited about their business. They're doing all of these things with their business, that they almost lose sight of what they're doing this for because they're so enraptured in it, and it can be years. And when I ask them, what do you do with your social life and what are your hobbies? There aren't any, because they haven't left any space for that, because they haven't created the ability to have that. And so creating a company that isn't dependent on you and takes care of you allows you then to step back and do all those wonderful things that actually when you first started the business you wanted to do. You wanted to travel more, or buy a second house and spend time there, or go into something else, or have a hobby, or whatever it was that you wanted to do. And so having these really support that as well. All right. It's time to lead Unmask. So for those of you with ADHD who has recognized that you have masked and covered it up, maybe you haven't even been diagnosed with ADHD, but you've read so much about it because it's all in the news now. There's so many of us getting late diagnoses that that this is you, or you've seen yourself in a lot of this that I've said today. It really is time to take the mask off, because it wasn't our fault that we were living in a society that wasn't built for us. If we think about how many neurodiverse people there are in our world, there are less neurotypical people than there are neurodiverse. If we think about all the marvelous flavors of neurodiversity, those with autism, those with all sorts of different brilliant minds that are out here doing their thing, we were all forced to live and be like a certain type of brain and a certain type of person. And even neurotypical people don't always fit what we were taught to be as children. So those masks that we put on because we were telling ourselves that we were wrong, or we were broken, or we should be different because we're not normal in the term of what society thinks we should be, we never needed to mask. It was society that got it wrong. It was governments that got it wrong. It wasn't us that got it wrong. So for anyone with ADHD and any neurodiversity, it's time to take the mask off and to lead with it and embrace it, because it's beautiful and it's brilliant. And it gives us so many benefits as leaders and business owners. So just know, however you're feeling about your ADHD as a business owner or a leader, you're not bad at business. You're absolutely exceptional at business, and you've got certain strengths. You're not scattered. You're not behind. You just think differently and you do things differently. You're just building in a world that wasn't meant for your mind, but actually your mind is brilliant and can create phenomenal change, which is needed in our world. But the world is changing. The world is more accepting, slowly, of neurodiversity. And we're a reason for that. We're the reason for that. Like, we've shown that neurotypical isn't the only way. And actually, there's brilliance in these brilliant minds. If we look at some of the most successful people, they're neurodiverse. If we look at Steve Jobs, if we look at Zuckerberg, if we look at people that have come up with phenomenal ideas and innovations, they're neurodiverse. And so we're leading the march. We can do so much more. And because when you lead unmasked, you give others permission to do the same. So there's a reason that people with ADHD come and work with me. I have a lot of clients with ADHD. Now, I don't specialize in ADHD. I just am someone living with ADHD and leading with ADHD. But they work with me because I've given them the permission to be who they are, and to be completely open with that and never mask. And that's a beautiful thing, because the more of us doing that, the bigger the ripple effect, right? So by doing that, you're showing your team, your clients, your peers that leadership doesn't have to look a certain way. It can be whatever way we choose it to look. And that powerful doesn't mean perfect. God knows I'm not perfect, but I'm powerful and I get amazing results and I lead very well. And that clarity doesn't mean conformity. You don't have to conform. You don't have to be like anyone else. You can lead your way and create phenomenal results in businesses, with teams, in whatever you're leading. And doing this means having self-trust, having nervous system safety, clean systems that hold you so you can just be as brilliant as you're being, however you're being, whatever season you're in, and becoming that regulated rebel that's leading the way. Because I truly believe ADHD leaders are the rebels and the change makers. And you don't need to become someone else to lead well. You're already equipped to do it. As I've said, so equipped to do it. You just need to build a world that works for you and forget the world that didn't. So it's time to just go lead it, do amazing things. Thank you. And if you want to stay in touch with me, that QR code, it leads to my WhatsApp. I have a WhatsApp where I speak directly to people who want to work with me. If you did want to work with me, I offer plenty of one-to-one support. You can reach me on WhatsApp. We can just have a chat. If you want to check me out, that is my website, Lighthouse Online. Thank you for listening. You're muted. We're going to go to questions now, aren't we?
Thanks for noticing, Gemma. Thank you so much for this insightful presentation. Yes, it's Q&A now. So if any of our participants would like to unmute themselves or insert their questions in the chat box, please feel free to do so.
Fabulous. Please do. Jonathan, I've just seen what you shared from Catalina's session. Love that, right? Perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect fit. Well, if we don't have any questions, when you share this, Elena, then I'm very happy if people kind of reach out with questions. You can send them on to me.
Absolutely. Jonathan says no questions for the time being.
No worries. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Gemma, for being with us today. Dawn is sharing, great session, no questions for now. Thank you once more. We look forward to the pleasure of hosting you in the future. So
yes,
please
absolutely. I'm going to come and talk about AI at some point.
Yeah, that's great. All right, everyone. So with this, we conclude. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.